Howdy folks, welcome back to Boondockery. Today I'm coming to you from the wild, untamed regions of my backyard. And the reason I'm here today, and possibly well into tomorrow, is I'm going to do a little walnut dyeing. No, I'm not. I'm going to be doing a lot of walnut dyeing. And the things I'm going to be focusing on dyeing are those things that I purchased from Glenn's Army Surplus Incorporated in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Why don't you come along, check it out. Now, if you just happen to have watched my unboxing video where I unboxed all the wonderful loot that I was able to score from Glenn's, you know that there's a lot of small things. And when you're walnut dyeing, you have all the walnuts in there, you have the husks, you have all kinds of stuff. So the potential of possibly losing track of 1 or 2 or maybe 15 of those items could actually be pretty real. So in order to avoid that, what I've done is I've tied them all together with strands of 550 cord. Now each little strand has, you know, a certain number of pouches on it. The larger the pouches, the fewer the number, but this will allow them to be able to space themselves out as I churn it, and then also allow me to be able to extract these items with my stirring stick. Well, we are finally at a boil. It takes a little while when you have this much water and this much walnuts in here. And so I'm just going to slowly start adding these pouches. Pushing these down in here. Being swallowed up by the goo. Fortunately, most of these things have water drain holes in the bottom, so they're not creating little air pockets in them to keep them afloat. And I think that may be capacity. I might be able to get 1 or 2 more things there on the sides. Let's see what we can do. And we'll put this right over there. That's a side pouch to my new Blackhawk Industries SOF rucksack. That will be getting its own video for my Ruckdiculousness series. Let's look. Yeah. Oh, nope. Just walnut hulls. Okay. There we go. Now, I would say that is capacity, and I'll be coming back and periodically stirring this, and then I will extract these items, hang them to dry. Then I'll be putting another load in. I'm going to let this go for at least 2 hours and take a look at it and see how it's going, with periodic stirring along the way. Alrighty folks, this is 2 hours in the dye bath, and I am going to just go ahead and take these, let them drain out a little bit, shake some of the walnuts out of them. Look like a bunch of golf balls. I'll put these in the buckets. Then I will transport those elsewhere for hanging and drying. Here's one of the big pouches. Now these things look ridiculously dark right now, and that's the way the other one did. But the one thing I'm going to do with these after I dry them, I'm going to actually rinse them out thoroughly and then machine wash them if they wind up being as dark as the test one that I did at the bushcraft gathering. Get these out of here. Now while I was doing all this, I've been raking, doing all kinds of fall chores, and I know you're really sad that I didn't sit here and talk through the whole time, this 2 hours where I was getting these things boiling, but you know, got to do my work too. Now the one thing I did do with these that I did not mention here at the beginning is everything, I mean everything that is in this walnut bath, I took to the laundromat and I washed with vinegar. I used a half gallon of vinegar to wash this stuff, and hopefully that prepped any of the pouches that may have been new, and you know, maybe there's some sizing or whatever on the pouches that was going to prevent it from taking the dye. Hopefully the acid in the vinegar softened those up enough to where that would work. Well, I'm going to go ahead and have to put my rubber gloves on and do some deconstruction here. Get those knots tangled out. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off, and I'm going to get the water boiling again, and some more walnuts, switch some stuff over, and get the next items in the bath. Okay folks, going to get you up to speed. A lot of stuff's happened the past few days. The last scene that you saw was me taking out the first batch of stuff from the walnut dye bath. Well, after that, the next stuff I put in were all the straps, the belts, all those kind of things, and they were all padded. Well, I noticed that I could not get those things to submerge in the walnut bath. So I took all of them out, I put them in a 5-gallon bucket. I filled the 5-gallon bucket up, and of course they're trying to float and get out and everything else. So I force everything down inside of it, and I put a lid on it and snap it in place. And I set it aside. So it had the walnut dye liquid in it and nothing else. So I set that off to the side. Then I put the harness and the medium rucksack in. I boiled it for 2 hours, of course stirring around, doing what I normally do. Then I put the larger pack, the Black Hawk SOF ruck in, and I had one last thing I had to put in, and that was the hydration system, and it was padded as well. And I was thinking, this is going to be a problem. I don't really like it anyway. It's just, for a hydration pouch, it's too bulky. It's got way too much molly webbing on it, and it's just, to me, it's overkill. So I really wasn't too concerned about it. So I just went ahead and shoved it inside that Black Hawk SOF ruck and stuffed her down in there. I did another 2 hours. Well, by the time all of this stuff had gone by the time I got everything out, got everything hanging to dry, it was already past dark. And so I went ahead, went to bed. Next day, I got up. Everything was still damp. So that afternoon, when everything was dry, I went ahead and hosed everything down, got it all good and rinsed out. It was still pretty dark. And I think it was the next day, no, it wasn't, must have been Monday. I took everything to the laundromat, and I said, well, this is really dark. I gotta do something about this. Gotta try to get this taken care of. So I bought Arm & Hammer laundry detergent with Oxy. And if I could have found just plain Oxy, which I live in a very small town, and it would have been at least a half-an-hour drive one direction to try to actually find actual Oxy, but this stuff had Oxy in it. So I figured, well, it would do the best, and it says maximum stain removal effectiveness. So well, you know, dye is a form of stain. So I went ahead, washed everything, got everything home, hung everything up, let it set overnight. Next day, went out and looked at it. You'll see the results in just a minute. Now, before I actually show you the stuff, real quick review. This was the blouse that I dyed last year, and I boiled this for several hours, and probably 4, I think I boiled it for 4 and left it sit in the walnut dye bath overnight. Took it out the next morning, and thought it might be just a little dark, and mostly because of the Velcro, really dark. So when I dyed this blouse at the bushcraft gathering, I specifically only boiled it, you know, for a couple hours, you know, just so it would be a little bit lighter. And as you can see, it's just a little bit lighter, and that worked out great. And I've tried other experiments, like I said. This was just a blaze orange bandana from Bombproof Bushcraft, and you can see that that is no longer blaze orange. I just wanted to show the folks at the gathering that this stuff can dye any color and make it a nice subdued color. Now, this went in the boil bath as well. This, remember, I did a pair of pants that was just in a hot water dye bath, not boiling, and they turned out much lighter. I also put this in there as well. This was a black and white shemagh, and so this is much more subtle of a dye, but it's still, you know, it's still pretty subdued. You know, a little bit light, but that's okay. It still works. The test pouch that I boiled that for the same amount of time that I did my blouse, and I left it in the dye bath overnight. This is it. I did wash this, and I saw that, you know, I see some pattern coming through, and so in my way of thinking, yes, the walnut dye will dye heavy duty nylon pouches, and since I boiled this for several hours and left it in the dye bath overnight, I would figure I would just go ahead and boil the pouches for 2 hours and take them out immediately. These are the pouches, and this one is the one that I dyed at the bushcraft gathering, and my attempt was to make these lighter. As you can see, they are not lighter. They are actually darker. Now, they are a good subdued brown, but they're a little dark. These two pouches, for whatever reason, this ABU and this UCP saw pouch, they lightened up for whatever reason more so than the others. A little bit on the radio pouch. These are the larger pouches. These are the two pouches that go with the Blackhawk SOF ruck, and these were the two sustainment pouches. Now, the one thing I did notice when I was looking specifically for this is how much boiling would affect the interior of the coating of the nylon. And from what I can see, these were in really great shape, so they were still just that little bit tacky that you get when things are fairly new. These are no longer tacky, but the coating, the lining, is still intact. It did not separate from the nylon, and I got a little bit of deformity on the little windows on the back of the sustainment pouches, because those are essentially just a clear plastic. but that was the only amount of damage that I found on any of these pouches. As you can see a little bit of that pattern coming through, but it's still really, really dark. This is the harness. The webbing definitely took the dye really well. You can see a little bit of the pattern coming through, but it's still that milk chocolate type of color. This is the inside. This I didn't think was all that horrible, and because of the inconsistency in the dye bath, I have some modeling here, which actually is a good thing. A little bit more here as far as camouflage goes. And of course, everything that was plastic still stayed that green-gray color. I think they call it sage. And everything basically is dark brown. Now, all of the straps that were padded, I shoved in the 5-gallon bucket. Those actually didn't turn out half bad. Now, granted, I think it's a little bit on the red side, but if you look at the background here with the leaves, that's not half bad. I would have been very happy if all of them would have turned out like this. And the battle belt, of course, there's not a whole lot of the UCP pattern showing through on that. My SOF rucksack straps. Of course, the back is a solid color anyway, but you know, the front didn't turn out too bad. And the waist belt for the SOF rucksack, uneven dyeing, but I kind of like it. It actually works better than the dark brown all the way around. Now, these are the things that probably broke my heart the most. This is the medium rucksack. Now, this will be one great big honking dark blotch in the forest. Yeah. This epic fail. I'll bring it a little closer so you can actually see, you know, how the pattern took on it. And perhaps if I can actually get some real OxyClean and try a couple other little things, I might be able to lighten this up a little bit. It's not going to prevent me from using it. However, it didn't achieve the success that I was hoping for. The Blackhawk SOF ruck, it wasn't as bad as the medium ruck, but it's still very, very dark. Especially with all of the webbing that was now that really dark brown. Bring it a little closer so you can see the pattern a little bit better. See, up close you can actually see the pattern coming through. However, it's not the type of lighter color I was hoping for. And when I hold that up, yeah, that's one big dark blotch. Like I said, I'm going to try to do a few things to see if I can lighten it up a little bit. And if I do, you'll definitely see it. The only thing that turned out even remotely close to what I was really hoping everything would was actually the thing that I could have cared the least about, and that was the hydration pouch. This actually turned out pretty good. Now, granted, all of that moly webbing is going to detract from the camouflage type pattern, but as you can see, that would be able to blend much better in the forest than the way everything else did. And I have no idea why these things turned out the way they did. Yeah, you live, you learn. So as you can see, it's all way too dark. Now my takeaways from this, lessons learned, if you are going to try this, and when I do this in the future, I know now that the heavy duty nylon stuff actually takes the walnut dye much better, much faster, and much more thoroughly than the ripstop clothing fabric. Same amount of time on certain garments, and these are almost black. They're so dark. So if you're going to be doing this, I would recommend highly that if you're going to use the boil technique, that you maybe put it in for half an hour and then hose it down, let it dry, and look at it. That might be a multi-day process, but now granted, you're going to get the UCP, ACU stuff much cheaper, but it's still an investment. If it was given to you, or it's left over from the time that you served the military and you don't have any money invested in it whatsoever, you can just go ahead and wing it. But if you have the investment in it, you need to take that time. You need to do those multi-day, a little bit here, rinse it off, let it dry, check it out, see how it looks. If it needs to be darker, you can always darken it a little bit more. But as you can see, it's very, very, very difficult to lighten this up. Got a few other things I'm going to try to lighten it up, but if not, hey, I've got some dark brown kit that is still head and shoulders above what UCP and ABU was. And I'm going to be good with that. Well, folks, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.